frustration, anxiousness, lack of control, brain fog, difficulty making decisions, feeling like you're not making an impact, or there's just a host of things. And these are all completely natural for human beings that go through traumatic situations. Myself, in addition to all the things that Kiana shared, I'm also a stressologist. I've been studying stress for going on 16 years. I've been a part of informal and formal research, working mainly with law enforcement and nurses. Within the past year, I've been branching out into educators, as I've realized how much educators could benefit from this as well. So normally I have a slide deck where we can break out into breakout rooms. So I don't really think that's going to be possible for this. So we're going to kind of fly by the seat of our pants together. Hopefully you guys are okay with a bit of that as well. So I'm going to share my screen with one of the decks I've created. Kiana, I see you. If you can see the first slide. Okay, cool. So normally I have some type of a stress breaker, icebreaker, if you will. And so just right now, like while you guys are sitting down, if you can, please put your hands at your side in kind of a relaxed state. And I want everyone to close their eyes and breathe in deeply through their nose. Hold it for a second. And now breathe out slowly through your mouth. Let's do that one more time. Thank you. That's something that is fairly cheap and quick that we can all do. And don't be afraid to do it throughout the day. It's a way that you can catch your breath, so to speak. So some of the things I'm going to be going through, you'll see that, so I'll give just a little bit more on my backstories. And I like being fully transparent, fully authentic with the people I work with. I am a child who survived trauma, and I also survived trauma as an adult. So I'm not necessarily, just speaking from things that I found in journals or a book, but things that I've lived through, as well as evidence that I've obtained through personal research and reading about the research of others. And I've seen it become impactful and beneficial to people. And so I wouldn't be sharing things with you guys that I didn't fully believe in. But I'm not going to get too much into the backstory with that. So one of the questions I like to ask everybody I work with is, would you rather be stressed or rather be challenged? And so I want everyone to just kind of ponder that for a few seconds and just think about that. What does it mean to be stressed, and what does it mean to be challenged? So this would normally be an activity that I would do called a time for feelings. This might be something that we could later build a framework for so that we could be doing it in small pockets or something like that. But we would typically break into small groups and discuss words, specific words that we associate with feeling stressed, and words that we would associate with feeling challenged.
Dr. Woodruff, would you like to do a quick unmute and shout out?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all friends here. So
okay, cool.
How does the prompt go?
Yeah, so basically you would get about 2 minutes to work with a small group, typically about 6 people per group, and you guys would discuss together what are some words that you feel when you think of I'm stressed or stress in general. Typically, most groups come up with about the same 5 words. And then after we spend a few minutes doing that, then we would spend a few minutes doing the same, but for the term challenged.
Sure. So if you're feeling comfortable out there and you want to hit your unmute, let's go through that stress column first. And just shout it out. What's another?
Sleeplessness.
Say it again, Karen.
Sleeplessness.
Thank you.
Pressured.
Tired.
Overwhelmed.
Anxiety.
Overwhelmed.
Fatigue.
No plan.
Hmm.
Harass.
Grades.
Hmm.
Thank you. Let's start thinking about that other column. Yeah, let's start thinking about that other column.
Yep. Now let's do the same thing, but thinking about challenge.
Energized.
Oh.
Change.
Problem solver.
Goal driven.
Motivated.
Excited.
Focused.
Thanks, everybody. It's kind of
Excellent.
interesting, and it's kind of interesting to hear you shout those things out into them. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for chiming in with that.
Head back
And
to
so-
mute. Head back to mute, please.
So I'm just going to go over the ones that I heard. I heard sleepless, tired, anxiety, overwhelmed for stressed. And for challenged, I heard energized, focused, excited, and motivated. And so I just want you guys to just kind of think on that for a few seconds. And do we feel like we generally agree with what everyone shared? Or did it just sound like, whoa, that sounds crazy. Let's talk about that. Let's see a thumbs up. Okay. So for this next part, this may prove a little more difficult. So maybe I'll defer to Kiana if she wants to choose a few people to share.
Do you
And
want
so,
would you like for me to put them in breakout rooms for this? It's up to you.
I mean, if you want to, I guess maybe groups of 10 or 12. Yeah, it's up to you. So basically the way that this goes is we're once again in small groups. And this is a time for vulnerability. So if you feel like it's too much for you to share right now, it's completely, we completely understand. But if you do want to share, this is a brave space. So feel free to share. But we're generally looking for 3 themes of stress and 3 themes of challenge. So when you're sharing a story, like let's say for stressed, and let's say you're stressed out about how your kids are doing. So a theme for that would be, how my kids are doing. But you could go on to explain what it is about your kids right now that is stressing you out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, it's up to you if you want to call on a few people to share or if you want to put them into breakout rooms.
So we can do breakout rooms for 4 minutes, or do you want 3 minutes?
Can we do 3 minutes for stress and 3 minutes for challenge?
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. So thank you all for participating in that. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who felt comfortable enough to share, thank you very much. And I'm pretty sure your colleagues are very thankful of you being vulnerable as well. And so if Jeanette or Kiana, if you guys want to call out on maybe 1 or 2 people to share, I'd like to have somebody share, what they heard for stress. It doesn't have to be what you said necessarily. It could be what your team said. So what was the theme? Like, what was the story behind stress?
So I'm calling on Robin Bates.
I knew you were going to do that, Miss Jeanette. All right. Well, we had a great conversation in our group. And one of the things for stress that we talked about is just the need to do everything, but not being able to. We want to be that great wife and mom and friend and teacher and colleague. And it's just really hard right now to, because it's not just even day by day or hour by hour, it's minute by minute, things are changing. And it's stressful.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we're calling on Ashley Beltran.
Yeah, I was expecting that too. Our group, because we realized that we all work with parents, kind of were on a consensus about feeling stressed about these children having parents that can't really help them technologically, and a lot of kids feeling, I personally work with kids who are 5, 6, and 7 years old. So for them to get, onto the computer and do these things on their own is hard. And a lot of them have parents who don't speak English, who aren't tech savvy. And I think that they've decided that they're just going to call it quits for now, because it's not something that they enjoy or are having an easy time with. So that was a big one for us. We were feeling stressed around that we're losing the parents.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
So let me call on one more person, Tiffany Clavery.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
We had a really good conversation too, and it kind of, we all had kind of similar stressors about what our roles are, kind of how they've changed, how we're trying to keep up with the times, how we're trying to keep kids engaged, and then going back to school with all the things we hear and some underlying conditions that teachers may have or even students may have, what that's going to look like in the future.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay. And if we can get the same thing, but for challenge.
Kiana, what did you guys discuss?
Yeah, I was just gonna.
I'll go ahead, Jeanette. You called on me. But there was a call trying to come in, and I couldn't answer you. But a challenge right now that I feel that I'm having, and maybe a lot of other teachers, is trying to get a hold of our students since they left. I have no idea where some of them are at. We're trying our best to try to get a hold of them, whether it be by phone, email, social media. I'm reaching out to their friends of friends. Can you tell me where so-and-so? And not knowing what's going on with them and not being able to help them, it's a big challenge, and that challenge turns into stress. So it's kind of like in our group we were discussing, these challenges that we have, they lead to the stress that we have. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. Hey,
Nice
Josh.
call out. Thank you.
Josh Lopez, you want to share what happened, what we talked about in our group?
Yes, I will. So one thing that we shared, kind of a quick recap, was on stress, that the time frame is like right now, right? Teachers need something, we need to provide it right now. Our students need something, we need to provide it right now. Our parents need something. So it really keeps us on our game, and that has definitely elevated our stress level a lot, to be on our toes, right? So one day we're teaching these students, we're helping people face to face. The next thing you know, you're remote learning, you're making these packets, you're Zooming with them. And if you're not familiar with technology, you kind of freak out like me. So my internet at the house or the cable box disconnects, and I'm ripping out duct tape, right? So that's stress. How am I going to do it? So now imagine when you're here and you're in a Zoom with all our teachers, and they want to make sure that I'm on my game, that whatever training I'm asking them to go to, I myself has researched, and then you have parents or students coming in as well. So it becomes somewhat of a juggling act, but you have to be on your game right now. What Ms. Kiana said was amazing. She said, especially for us, schools reach out, like make sure your resources are right now, immediate feedback, immediate resources, immediate help. And so that's definitely elevated everybody's stress level to make sure we're our best at every single minute of the day. And no wonder why Ms. Montaño said at the end of the day, she's holding her shoulders, because you just feel like we're all like this. You see that picture where it's like a guy and there's a world and there's 8 different hands, and we're all trying to hold it up together. I definitely feel like that's where we're at right now as a world, right? We all play very important roles, but everybody has a stressor. We're trying to hold the bigger picture up. And that's how I definitely feel that came about from our quick 3 minutes, that responsive right now. And we're all trying to juggle kind of, to be the best we can. I don't know if that recapped Ms. Q, but that's what I got from it.
Sounded like what I heard.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
There was also that element of challenge, feeling like sometimes fun, like when you get in your exercise groove and, at first you don't want to get up, but then it's like, okay, I need that challenge in my life. So I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels different coming out of my mouth as a challenge than it did as a stressor.
Okay. And do we have time for one more share for challenge?
Hey, Veronica Cervantes, are you open?
I'm here, yes.
On the challenge side, yes.
Well, I think ours kind of teetered back and forth between being stressed and being challenged. And one of the things was trying to reach out and meet the needs of everybody. We had a counselor and a teacher and I forgot what Lee works in the superintendent's office and myself. So we were from the different realms, but reaching out to try to meet those needs has been a challenge to make sure that everybody has access to technology or to internet or has devices. Just being able to do that has been a stress and a challenge at the same time.
Excellent. Muchísimas gracias for everybody. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So there again, maybe take 20 seconds, 30 seconds and just reflect on what everyone has shared. And do we feel like we can identify with what people said were stressful stories and what people said were challenging stories? And if anybody feels like anything is completely out of place and, hey, we need to talk about it, go ahead and chime in now. Okay. So what happened? With the story of sharing both of those things, would you rather be stressed or would you rather be challenged? Just marinate on that for a few seconds, and if somebody would maybe get 2 volunteers to chime in on how they feel.
Hey, Mr. Stone, can you share?
Yes, thank you. Definitely now after discussing it for a bit, now the boundaries are blurring on me from stress to challenge. So I think that I do want to mention 3 things that come to my mind after listening to you.
Yeah,
it's number one, the challenge would be we live in an era of too much information. So this is an opportunity for us to detect distractors. And then particularly at this moment, I'm talking about the too many technology tools. So that's too much info. That's one. The second one will be a balance. What is effective lesson delivery? And I'm reflecting on my classroom practices that I have our students 6 hours a day. Now we don't have them 6 hours a day. So it gives me an opportunity to challenge myself to be the most effective teacher with the time that I have. But of course, being challenged, I also stress out because was that the best lesson I could give in that time? And then the third one would be that social, emotional, building relationship component, how crucial it is to maintain our parents and our community and our students and our teachers and our administration active with us. That it kind of like Janet Montaño said in the beginning, sometimes we're talking to ghosts. It's difficult when you're in front of the screen, but how do we continue to progress in that area of social, emotional, and building relationships?
Yeah, well said. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as we go deeper into this, we're going to get into some activities and some resources that can help answer some of those concerns and questions. So, and I appreciate that. I heard some people say that the line was started to blur between stress and challenge. So why do we think that is? Maybe if we can get a volunteer to maybe share why that line is starting to blur.
Well, I think I'm going to share on this one because I do feel that it blurs a lot. I'm a person that likes to be challenged because it motivates me to want to do a better job. But at the same time, when you're challenged with something new and the unknown, or you have a lot of unanswered questions, it creates a lot of stress, especially when you don't know the how to do something or how exactly or what exactly is expected and you have to figure things out. that can be very stressful. Whereas if you are at a high stress already and then you're challenged on top of that, if it goes the other way around, the stress, it skyrockets higher. I feel that it's worse if it starts with you being stressed already. But if you're not stressed and you're good and you're okay and you're challenged, then that stress level might be a little different than the other type of stress. I almost feel that there's two lines of stress. There's good stress and there's a bad stress. Am I on the right track or no?
Yeah, I feel like you've already seen my slides.
I haven't. I know how I work, and I always ask, okay, so why is it that I can't handle this one, but I was fine over here? Well, on one, I started off good, and the challenge made it stressful, but it was a good stress. If I'm stressed, and then I'm given something that I don't fully understand, I'm trying to figure it out, then it increases my stress.
I see you already are practicing SEO with your self-awareness, your social awareness.
I'm going to tell you that the 30-minute conversation that we had with you, it worked. It worked.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
I think the categories and the challenge is important too, because right now we're for myself, the challenge of work and supporting districts and teachers, that's a challenge, right? We're trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs in the moment. But that's something that as an educator we're used to, because in the classroom you're always adapting and trying to figure out those challenges within learning. But on top of that, now you have the categories of the challenge of being an educator at home with your kids that you normally never had to do, and now you have that added challenge. And so the different categories within the challenge add to the stress of what needs to come out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm going to kind of fill in some of the blanks, because I think you guys have already answered some of these things, because we would spend some time talking about the differences between stress and challenge and some of the similarities between stress and challenge. But one thing that I heard is with stress, we have the unknown. So what if I mentioned the word control in context of stress and challenge? Do we feel like one we have control and one we don't have control? Yeah. What about your power or your ability? Do you feel like one you have an ability and one you don't have an ability? So normally this is something that I would do outside of a pandemic. And I'm just happy that we're able to still try and we can still make these connections even with us already being super stressed that we are right now. So I really appreciate everybody still, getting the gist of what I'm trying to say with this. But what I've learned in research is that your perception of what comes your way matters. You can change how you see things. It's just a matter of having a conversation with yourself, like doing some self-awareness, some self-reflection, and saying, do I have control over what is stressing me out right now? And if you do, then maybe you can make some next steps to help start lowering that pressure, start giving you some of that power back. And once you start to have that power back, once you start to have that control back, you're gonna have more confidence. And with the confidence, the control, and the power from that, you're gonna have a better idea of what's going to happen. It starts to fill in that blank of the unknown. So normally I would go into a brief history of stress, but I'm going to do like a super fast whirlwind version of it. So basically, the reason why we call stress the way we do today is because of a guy named Dr. Hans Selye, who published an article in 1936. And every, physiological researcher in medicine, they all took what he did and ran with it. And Dr. Hans Selye was an English language learner. English was not his first language when he was here. And so he relied on his roommates who were physicists. When he tried to explain the phenomenon that he found, they said, oh, that sounds like stress. So the whole world calls stress stress because of a miscommunication. It wasn't until he gained a mastery level of English in 1975 or around 1975, and he came out and he said, actually, I meant to call it strain. He's like, stress is a bad word for it because it's not inherently bad. It's not inherently good. It's up to you to discern how you feel about what it is you're contending with. And that's when he came up with 2 flavors of stress to kind of showcase Jeanette, what she said earlier. He came up with eustress and distress. I think I have that on this slide here. So from 1975 until about 2001, nobody did anything with this research. And then around in 2001, some researchers started to look into eustress. And just to clarify, distress is a negative interpretation of stress, and eustress is a positive interpretation of stress. So typically, when you're feeling challenged and you have a successful outcome, most people would say that's eustress. When you're feeling stressed and there's no hope in sight and you're powerless, most people would define that as distress. So I'm just going to go over this super quick. This is kind of where science is right now with stress, where you have an alarm stage, a reaction stage, and an exhaustion stage. Some people, they try and take this as gospel, pardon my wording, but that's the best term I can think of. But they don't understand like the full spectrum of stress. I've only recently been able to, support and refute some of these things over the work I've been doing. They don't take into effect people's interpretation and time, but we'll get into that later. So I'm not going to get into that right now. We can dive into this stuff later. A quick tool tip, if anyone is a nurse here or knows nurses, there's something called Benner's theory, from novice to expert. If anybody's curious about that, I'll put my email. We can talk about that later. So this is the model that I came up with on stress. There was a bunch of other stuff on here, but I don't really want to get us too deep into the weeds. But homeostasis and comfy, that's when you feel relaxed. That's when that you have that feeling. And so whenever you're there, that's what we consider homeostasis. And so the curvy wave going like this, that's the natural ups and downs that you would experience on a normal day, on a healthy day, if you have good work-life balance and you're not too burned out. That's where you would live, is in that green area. And so normally I would coach people on how to do something called positive stress cycles, of going from comfy to excitement and back again. But right now, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not. Yeah, okay. So right now, we're all living in excitement. And so when I use the term excitement, it's more of medical excitement, not necessarily like, oh, we're on a roller coaster exciting. It basically means that your mind and body is at a hyper arousal or hyper alert, hypersensitive, easily irritated, those types of things. And so because we have this constant pressure of COVID right now, we just need to be working on coming back to homeostasis as much as we can. If COVID wasn't here, we would be trying to seek out challenge and then come back, challenge, come back. But right now, I just want everyone to focus on, we just need to be as relaxed as we can, because this pressure is going to come regardless, okay? And so this is over here, this is something we call allostatic load. It's basically how much your brain can stretch with how much stress you're receiving. So that leads to the second model I came up with, which is basically the pressures of distress and eustress. The analogy I have is, let's say a loved one calls you a nasty name in the morning and leaves. How long does that sit with you? Are we talking hours? We talking days, months, maybe years for some of us? And how powerful is that? How much did it affect us? You know, how ugly did we feel because of that? And then we look at the opposite side. Same loved one says something kind to us in the morning. How quickly do we forget about that? And how powerful was that? So I just want us to marinate on that for a few seconds, because it's an important component of how we react to stress. So unfortunately, that is how we receive and interact with stress. We remember the nasty for a lot longer, and it hurts us a whole lot more than the positive. That is part of a survival mechanism. We're not going to get rid of that. But the point of the story is, if we can try and change our perspective of our stressors in our life to be more challenging, more eustress, we can handle more in a given time, and it'll filter out of us a whole lot faster so that we can get back to that cycle. And by doing that, you will build resiliency, growth, and confidence a whole lot faster. Whereas the flip side, if we have this stress load, it usually doesn't go anywhere, and it'll just sit on us, like almost for life. So that's why it's really important that we try and start changing our perspective of what stressors we have in our life. So I know we have some, I think we have some educators here. So I'm going to talk about Maslow's. Some of us have heard you got a Maslow before you can bloom. That is extremely true. And it's even more true right now because of COVID. So this is a cool graphic that I found. I can't take credit for this. I'm not nearly that artistically inclined, but I'd like to be one day maybe. So those are the three basic levels of the brain and how you process information that comes into you. And meaning, you know, from your senses. So at the base, we have physiological needs, which is at the base of Maslow's hierarchy. And that's like your basic necessities. And so, excuse me, your basic necessities come from your brainstem. But then as you get those, then you can move up and start saying, okay, well, now I need to be able to feel safe. Now I start thinking about, oh, I need to get employed or something like that. And then as those needs become met, then you move more into the middle of your brain. That's where your emotions live. That's where you're looking for partnership, you're looking for friendship. It's where you understand sensations of family, etc. And then once you have that, you start to earn self-esteem, respect, status, recognition, validation, etc. And then from there, you move into your highest point of your brain, which is the cortex. And that's where novel thought comes from, creativity, those types of things. Maslow argued that that's where self-actualization is. I would actually put self-actualization like one step up above that, because in my opinion, self-actualization is like almost a deep mastery of SEL. That's when you are okay with yourself in the world, you have great self-awareness, you're culturally open-minded, you appreciate differences and those types of things. But we can get into that at another point. And the reason why I have an arrow over here is because this is rising. So this is where all of your information first comes in. And then so long as these needs are met, it'll start moving up your brain towards your higher processing. So this is basically where people are at when they experience trauma. So our kids that are experiencing trauma, we are experiencing trauma. It's difficult to explain other than it's like they put bumpers or like blinders or something over the rest of your brain's ability. Your brain is still working, don't get me wrong. but your ability to like rationally process thought, have creativity, novel ideas, and those types of things becomes severely limited when physiological needs and safety needs are not met. And so during the times that we're in right now, you know, a lot of us are kind of bubbling in from this to maybe in the middle. It's very difficult for us to start having creativity and novel thoughts during times like these, unless you're like practicing meditation and all these other things that we're going to get into in a little bit. So this is just a little bit of more description. Once again, I cannot take credit for this particular graphic, but it basically aligns with everything that I've found in the literature. I just want to clarify one point on it. Under the component reflective on the far right, under processing basis, it says mind reading. It does not mean that literally. It means like when you're talking with somebody and you can finish their sentence or something like that. That's what it means. But it's still funny.
Thank you for clarifying. We didn't know who we hired. No.
But this is you know, I think it's a great framework for people to kind of understand, you know, where we're at. And so during times of trauma, we're more reactionary than we are reflective. You know, so when somebody does something to us, or when your environment does something to you, you immediately want to react. You know, whether it's fight or flight, or say something mean, or those types of things. And that's completely normal. But there again, we're going to talk about some activities and some things that we can do to help mitigate those. I would feel better, or actually I'm okay if we could live somewhere in the middle. Because right now it's tough out there. And so if you can make it to middle with the occasional dip into reflective, you're on point. You know, if you can live in reflective with everything that's going on right now, come teach me and I will teach others. So it's okay to not be okay, you know, but we can, there's things that we can do to where we can be living in the middle. We definitely want to try and stay out of the reactive, because in our family units, with the kids that we work with the families that we work with, you know, we need to have a little bit of cushion in case they're in the reactive area, so that we can help them through these times. Because not everybody's gonna, you have to assume that because where we're at right now, most people are gonna be reflective to the deliberate. Most of them are gonna be in reflective, or reactive, I should say. So this is a quick little model I made. Let me see where I'm at. Okay. So I'm going to start racing through the rest of this so that we can get to the resources.
You do.
So we talked.
What you need to do, Dr. Woodruff, and just for everybody on the call, we're going to make some time in the future to also be with, to learn some more about this stuff and dig in. So.
Okay, excellent. Okay, yeah.
We'll be back for more.
Okay, I'm just going to kind of race through these things then. So I'm sure some of us have heard of the term cortisol, and some of us have heard of the term oxytocin. So these are chemicals within us. Cortisol is known as the stress hormone. Oxytocin is known as the love hormone or bonding hormone. Through all the research I have done, I have reason to believe that cortisol is directly related to distress, and oxytocin is directly related to eustress. But we can dive into that later. One of the chief components of this is cortisol is constrictive or catabolic. It means we want to tighten up when it's there. Our organs will constrict, our muscles will constrict. That's completely normal. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to do that to try and protect us if we have to run from a tiger. Oxytocin is supposed to make us relax. And it's supposed to do that on purpose because it's supposed to mitigate cortisol. And when we're relaxed and we don't have fear, then we can start embracing love. But we can dive into that later. So these are some of the things that are attributed with cortisol. I'm gonna let you guys take a look at that for a sec.
You should
The
add
chief,
a COVID on there.
yeah, definitely, good point. The two main things I want to discuss on this are suppress the immune system and decrease serotonin. So I've heard from quite a few people, like people who've reached out to me personally, saying, you know, I just feel like I'm not making an impact right now. I get out of bed and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why bother? So that tells me that they typically have a higher level of cortisol that's been in their system for so long, it's been pushing down serotonin. Serotonin, we can get into that at another time, but it's basically like a mood balancer. It is one of the chief components on why we do what we do. You know, why we love helping our families and kids. Serotonin is a big component of that. And if you feel like you're starting to lose some of that mojo, it could be because of too much cortisol. So then comes oxytocin, generally associated with trust, love, decreasing fear, generosity. There's a whole host of ways that you can make it happen. And, you know, pound for pound, oxytocin can four-wheel drive over the top of cortisol, at least as far as how we feel on the inside. So now we're going to get into a little more science. And so this is how your brain interprets the world around you. And I went with Oklahoma's reference. It appears to be on par with everything else I've found. So one of the activities that I coach people on is something called the hard reset and the soft reset. That would take probably one of these sessions in and of itself. Excuse me. But what it does is it uses your senses in such a way to kind of help to force a reset. So just think of like how you would process the world around you if 94% of your working sensory mind was focused on one thing. Yeah. And so that focus, you're spending 94% of your brain focusing on relaxing. What I've been able to do with this is people who have recently experienced trauma, namely law enforcement is who I originally developed this with, they were able to come back to relaxation from a traumatic event in about 5 minutes, which is a bold claim. I've only seen that with the people that I have worked with. I haven't done exhaustive research on that yet. But I have done it personally, and it works for me. I've done it with at least 5 people at every workshop I've done, and it's worked for them as well. So in medicine, we typically say, like, if the cost of doing something versus the benefit you get out of it is acceptable, then you should be sharing it. And I feel that this doesn't hurt anybody, and what you could get from it is deeply beneficial. So I think now I'm gonna flip into some resources. So hopefully you all have seen this already. If you haven't, your team has it. We have it in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And I'm currently trying to get other languages going on it. You know, if anybody knows any other translators willing to do any other languages, please let me know. So first things first, everything that we talk about in here, this is not a quick fix. This will take 1 week to 2 weeks for you to notice any of these things is having a difference on how you feel. So that also connects to an additional component of feeling better, which is routine. Right now, our routines have been, you know, scattered to the wind, so to speak. And so if we can set a routine of wellness, it's going to help you more than just the one routine by itself, if that makes sense. So the first one I like to share is an anti-inflammatory meal. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper. Typically speaking, you're looking for foods high in antioxidants. Your most vibrant vegetables, brightly colored, yellows, oranges, reds, etc. They typically are more rich in antioxidants. The quickest, easy way to think about it is every berry you can find is going to be high in antioxidants. And most people I meet like berries. Maybe you don't like blueberries, but you probably like strawberries. Or, some people like them all. And if you do, more power to you. The other thing is cruciferous vegetables, or your dark leafy greens. Your broccolis, your kales, your spinach. Someone reminded me about Brussels sprouts. Yes, Brussels sprouts too. So the other component is lowering the amount of meat that you eat per meal. And this is based off the most exhaustive medical research that has ever been done, which was done in China. The last emperor of China conducted this. And that level of research will probably never be matched again, because it would be like an entire country doing research together. And what they found is that families, environments, and pockets of their country, the people who consume 10% or less per meal of meat had like a 95-ish percent chance of not obtaining most of the things that ail people, such as cardiovascular disease, cancer, and a whole host of things, which, if you go to your physician here and you say, does diet and exercise help? They're like, yeah, that will help with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, all these other things. So consuming a diet that's high in anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, and a lower amount of meat should be deeply beneficial to that. And I also like to throw in there oatmeal and yogurt if you can. So I'm sure you guys have heard of probiotics. Yogurts are high in probiotics. Kombucha is high on probiotics. But the reason why probiotics don't work for most people is because probiotics need special food, which are called prebiotics. And so oatmeal and other types of greens similar to oatmeal are your prebiotics. So if you eat oatmeal with a little bit of yogurt, you got the whole package, especially if you throw some blueberries in it. And oatmeal's cheap and easy to make. So the next component is listening to calming music. I am particularly excited about this component because the composer I'm mentioning in this, Liquid Mind, I've been speaking to him readily, and he and I are now working on special music things that will last a certain amount of time and has a certain blend of certain things, to where all you do is hit play and you just feel a whole lot better in about 22 minutes, which relates to something I call the soft reset. The other thing is he knows the work that I do with educators, and he is a philanthropic person himself, and he said, well, I'm going to make a special website for you that you can hand out to your teachers and they can download all my music for free. And so he's got about 13 albums of mindfulness music. And so that's something you can play for your kids, something you can share out with your families. Just a great person, and I'm happy to be working with him. The main thing about his music is that it's built off of science. He's been working with music therapists, neuroscientists, stress researchers such as myself to help shape his music so that it meets certain specifications to make you feel better. And typically that means no spoken word, no drums, no break beats, no guitar riffs. And some people would say that's not music. Well, if you're very stressed and you listen to this, it's going to be the best music you ever heard. And so also try and make a session. If you're going to get into listening to this type of music, just set 20 to 30 minutes aside. Talk with your family, say, hey, this is mommy's or daddy's or whomever's decompression time. Don't bother me, don't disturb me unless somebody's arm falls off or the house is burning down. Let me have this peaceful 20 to 30 minutes. And I highly recommend don't look at any clocks, don't watch TV, don't read, turn off your phone. You want as little outside stimulation coming into you as possible so that you can more deeply focus on this.
And I can see all of my friends right now either taking pictures of their screen or jotting down furiously. So we will share resources in a follow-up email.
Yes.
If you signed up on OMS, we'll push it out. You know us, what's ours is yours. So we'll be getting this stuff to you.
Excellent. Thank you. And positive affective statements. For our fans out there who are versed in PBIS, SEL, restorative practice, restorative justice, this is something I have taken out of their playbook. It's typically something that we prescribe our children to do, but I have found that it works for adults just as well, especially during these times of difficulty. What I've also found is that you don't have to teach an adult the framework. If you start using this type of framework yourself for 2 weeks, I'm almost certain that the adult that you're sharing with this framework, using it with them, they'll start to do it too automatically. It becomes intuitive. And so it's using statements such as, I feel. That's like the heart of it. And so I have two versions. I have a beginner version and a more advanced version. The beginner version, basically, let's say somebody, I don't know, leaves the toilet seat up or leaves the fridge door open, and you just had a rough day, and you want to call them a name or you want to shout something out or like, how dare you? And so you go in that front room or you go over, you find them, you hunt them down, and you let them know that they are this thing. And so what you've done is you have blurted out some emotion, but you haven't really conveyed how you feel. And this person that you're trying to hopefully get them to stop doing it, you haven't even told them what they did. And so they're on the receiving end. They've just been attacked. They go into defense mode. And so after they've defended the first block, they want to throw back. And those are all natural reactions. But instead, if you go to somebody and say, hey, I noticed the door was left open. I noticed the toilet seat was left up. I've had a long day. And when I come home after a long day that's been stressful, I feel like I'm not appreciated, or I feel frustrated when I see things like that. So a more advanced version of that is you invite the other person. So after you've shared how you feel, then you can invite the other person to say, hey, now that I've shared how I feel about this, can you tell me how you were feeling, when you got home, and maybe they'll share that, hey, I had a long day too, and I forgot. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't do it on purpose. And so now you guys are having an exchange of your feelings. And you're going to be building relationships. You're going to be getting oxytocin. You're going to be lowering that threat level, lowering that stress level. And you're going to build a longer lasting framework too. And so that's one of my favorite things to share. And it's deeply intertwined into SEO. Meditation. So I'm not going to lie. Meditation is difficult, straight up. It's not something that you can just, read a book, here's a pamphlet, go out and just become a Zen master. It's not going to work like that. So I'll be completely honest with you. You got to work at it. It takes time. And you don't have to sit in a funny pose. You don't have to hold your fingers out like this. You don't have to do anything like that. Meditation is all about turning off the outside stimulation and looking within. The music that I mentioned earlier, the resource that I mentioned earlier, such as the hard and soft reset, they will help you get to where you want to go with meditation. But if you want to do it, you need to practice it. You need to set aside time. You have to talk with your family unit and say, hey, this is my decompression time. Please do not bother me. It may take some time. They may try and say, but what about this one thing? You're like, no. Just like, you know, when you're in the classroom and kids want to come in on recess. It's like, no, not happening. I need to do this thing. What the teacher's really saying is, I need my peace. So there's another kind of meditation. Perhaps we can get to that later, but it's called meta meditation. I mention it just because it's more powerful, but you really have to be kind of a master at regular meditation before you can get into meta meditation. But the research has shown that people who can bridge that gap, it becomes more powerful. You can get more oxytocin. It's more healing. I just wanted to mention it. Validation. One of the quickest, cheapest things that you can do from everything we were talking about today. And that's let somebody know how much you appreciate them. But it has to be connected to something they did. So, you know, hey, thanks very much for that email. Thanks very much for talking to those parents with me, something like that. And try and remind yourself or set yourself a schedule where you're doing it at least once a day, maybe twice a day, you know, 2 different people. And what happens is you're going to get a tiny piece of oxytocin, but the person who's hearing it, they're going to get twice that much. And so it's a win-win situation, especially for your teens and family. Laughing more. Yeah, who doesn't love to laugh, right? So laughter is connected to a component within your mind-body that is your, oh my gosh, everything is okay. A lot of people don't realize this, but laughter is connected to your fear mechanism. You're about to be super scared, but then your brain's like, wait a minute, everything's cool, everything's chill. And the reaction is a body laugh. So every time you can laugh, your mind is getting a dose of everything's okay. And so in these difficult times, more doses of everything is okay, I think is okay. So try and set yourself up with a schedule. Spend 5-10 minutes a day, watch some funny movies, or maybe set a, every night is movie night with the family and you're gonna watch something funny. You know, even if it's just slapstick comedy, something silly, stupid, whatever. So long as you're laughing, so long as your kids are laughing, you're winning. And probably the most powerful of all of these is a morning exercise routine. I really like to put a lot of emphasis on this because exercise produces something called endorphins, and endorphins can lower sensations of pain and lower sensations of negative stress or feeling stressed out. And the main reason why it has to be in the morning, well, it doesn't have to be in the morning, but I really, really want you to do it in the morning. The main difference being is when you sleep, you get extra cortisol. And that's completely natural. It's supposed to happen. It's to keep you from flailing around while you sleep so that your body can heal. It's just supposed to happen that way. And so that's also why when you wake up in the morning, you're more likely to become frustrated if you step on a Lego or something. You know, instead of just being a little bit upset, you're like, whoa, way up here. That's completely natural too. So this does a couple of things. So if you do it as soon as you wake up, also want to hydrate, make sure you drink a glass of water before, is that you're going to lower that cortisol that you just had from sleeping, but it's going to create this cushion, this buffer that's going to protect you or carry you through the whole day. And that buffer is going to be a physiological buff because it's going to boost your metabolism. But it's the main thing that we're talking about is it's going to give you a mental buffer, a mental barrier. So if you could only handle 10 stressors in a day, doing a morning exercise routine, now you can handle 15. Those are just dummy numbers I'm throwing out there, but you can handle more and before you feel overwhelmed. But there again, there's a couple of caveats to this. You have to be doing it for at least a week or 2 before your body starts to regulate and it becomes a natural thing. And then after you've been doing this for a month or 2, your body, and if you do it at a certain time, your body's just going to start producing the endorphins right away. Even before, you're just going to start feeling energized, like, ooh, it's time to go work out. I'm pumped. Let's do this. And so to make that happen, your exercise has to have 3 basic tenets. You have to do it for at least 10 minutes. You don't have to like run a marathon. You're not having to do the 50-yard dash. You don't have to do anything like that. It could be house cleaning. It could be, you know, tidying up your garage. Whatever you're doing, just do it constantly for 10 minutes. And you want to feel at least 1 bead of sweat. And so to feel that 1 bead of sweat, you typically are going to have a heart rate or a BPM of 125. And so bead of sweat, 10 minutes, BPM of 125. That's all you need to do every day. But try and have 1 day of rest. I usually will do regular exercise Monday through Friday. I do like an adventure exercise on Saturday, which is usually like a bike run or something. And then on Sundays, I rest. But make sure you talk with your physician if you're wondering if 125 beats per minute is too much for you. And so that's a whole bunch of things. And there's probably a whole bunch of questions and a lot of different avenues that we can dive into deeper. And maybe this will lead to some conversations that you all can have with your teams to figure out where we would like to go next. But I'm open for questions or wherever you want to take this now.
Yeah, I think the breakout rooms are already set. Maybe we can go in there for just a couple of minutes to formulate some thoughts and process a little bit with that small group that we were in. And then maybe we can come back out for some final questions or thoughts there.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
I'm gonna open them now.
We were discussing that right now, Ms. Rodriguez and I, one of our teachers, and you know what? Kind of like going off of what you said earlier, it's, you know, the challenge. You know, if I'm challenged, especially after watching the Bulls documentary this past 5 weeks. It's, you know, I'm gonna do everything in my power, every effort to overcome that challenge. That's just me. But it's really hard when you can't control what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just, and it adds more and adds more and adds more, and
yep.
You know, and I kind of realized, you know, reading the you know, about like the nutrition and the exercise and the laughter, and you know, and it is true. You know, laughing does help out a lot. You know, and then working out. My sister-in-law and my wife and I, we've been just trying to like go out we walk 3 miles a day. We kind of jog a little bit in there. Not totally, knees can't hold up like they used to, but you know, and then there's a shortage of dumbbells and exercise equipment, so I was able to scrap up some stuff there, and I was just telling her yesterday, like it's helped me out because you know, I miss my students. Especially, you know, there's students that we can't get a hold of that you know, I worry about them. Like, are they okay? Do they need anything? You know, we've had you know, students in need, and you know, we're trying to help out as much as we can, and what's at our disposal. So that adds to the stress.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Dr. Woodruff, just earlier today, like around noon, there was a big announcement, or in the morning, there was an announcement from our local hospital where they were announcing that we have no more room for COVID patients here in the Valley.
Oof.
But anybody that tests positive and that needs hospitalization, they're going to have to be sent somewhere else. So I know that those types of things are causing a lot of stress across the county. And then I believe we're number 2. I think we just recently moved to number 1, the number 1 spot in California, based on capita. But still, I mean, the percentage, the number of people that we have fighting this virus is a large amount. Many of them are related to people we work with, or, you know, friends and family members. We also have colleagues that have lost family members to this virus. And on top of that, we're having to carry our education system forward. And, you know, many of our students are not in the right environment, or, you know, we have colleagues that are losing homes, that are losing, you know, their spouses are losing jobs. all of that is causing a lot of stress. And sometimes because we are in a high stress era right now, we forget the little things that can make a major difference in our stress. And just hearing you talk today, and I'm thinking about all of the little things that I've missed myself that could have helped me. I'm not kidding when I said about the red meat. As soon as you said the red meat, I'm like, that's what I eat a lot of, you know, and I kind of push the berries to the side. Where, you know, I think a lot of us, because we're in a hurry, it's easier for me to grab a piece of chicken and just eat it, like if it was a chip, than it is for me to grab oatmeal with, you know, berries or something healthier, you know. And sometimes we think that because, you know, we're doing keto, you want to do all the red meat and fat that you want, and you forget that, you know, the stress is real, and it is a silent killer. So we do, that was our goal for today. Our goal really was to help everyone stop and just kind of think, take a breather and really think about where do we stand, and how are we ourselves handling stress. Because before we can address the need of our students, or even the need in education, period, regardless of the role that you play, we can't really go there unless we help ourselves. You know, self-care is important. So I really do appreciate the fact that you came and that you took this time to talk to us. I'm hoping that you will continue to say yes to our invite. We would like to have you back. So you know, any feedback, as we're going to send out a link to get your feedback, and just, you know, let us know what you think, and be honest, because your feedback is important to us. We really would like to continue these sessions. Moving forward, we want to take a shift into what does this mean for our students, and how do we take these practices and put them into their hands and into the practices that we are doing within our classrooms, within our school sites, with our staff and our colleagues. You have Denise Cabanilla. Is she on here somewhere? I believe she's here.
You know I am, girl. I'm right here.
I love that energy.
For your fabulousness, here I am.
So Denise, I'll let you introduce yourself to Dr. Woodruff, because I think.
Hi, Dr. Woodruff.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm a friend and a colleague to all these fine people on this call, and Jeanette and I work closely together at ICOE. I'm the Director of Higher Education and Adult Learning, and you know, this is our jam here, social emotional learning, along with our esteemed colleague Miriam Bell, who's on this call as well, and Debbie Montoya and Selpa. We're just a team that's committed to providing support and you know, all that good stuff for our colleagues. So
thank you, Denise. I was going there with Miriam. I was going to have Miriam introduce herself. So the reason why I have Miriam and Denise popping in is because they're going to be partnering with us in this work. As you know, as we move forward, we would really like to spearhead this to really target the need of our school sites. But I'll go ahead and let Miriam introduce herself.
Hi, Dr. Woodruff. Thank you so much for your time today. You know,
my pleasure.
Yeah, it was really, you know, more meaningful than you'll ever know. You know, we care about these people. We care about these people a lot. We care about, of course, their work and their resilience, but we care about their well-being more than anything, because if we're not okay, then, you know, what good are we, right? What good are we to anybody? And so we are very proud at ICOE that we come from a model of self-care, and we come from a model of really, you know, growth and well-being. So I'm the director of the Student Wellbeing Department for ICOE. And like Denise says, this is our jam, right? You know, we live and breathe social emotional learning, and we live it, you know, we believe it. And here we are speaking with educators about this, right? I've been with ICOE for 25 years. I've been the director for, I don't know, 10 years. And the fact that we have, you know, at one point we had about 180 people on this call. We're still well over 100 speaking about social emotional learning. is just, you know, if anyone knows anything about me, they know how just absolutely over the moon I am. That we're having this discussion with educators, you know, that it's not about, it's not just curriculum and instruction, it's social emotional learning for you as the educator and to impart to your families, to your students, you know, this is a fine day. And so, you know, we are just beyond, just beyond. And so we just, you know, want to continue this dialogue. You know, Denise and I, we're going to wiggle our way right in and say, heck yeah, we're supporting this because, you know, we really want this to thrive, and we really want this to, we want to give the curriculum and instruction department all the support and all the support that we can put behind this, you know, and so we're thrilled that this is happening. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Jeanette, for your team for being just, you know, right where you guys need to be. So impressed, and I'm so proud to be a part of this team.
All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Kiana to go ahead and close this deal.
Righty. So I think everybody hit your hand clap button for Dr. Woodruff, or clap into clap into the camera there. This is a friend of our county. Look at that, light it up, yeah. So it's a new friend to our county, and there were so many spots in that presentation where he said, that could be a whole day, and that could be a whole day. So we'll take it. I mean, we'll take those topics. Let's see, going to click. We've done the breakout rooms. You reflected a little bit, and I'll say just take these questions with you. What resonated? What are you going to try? You know, if you still have questions, when we push out that feedback form, please ask the questions or name the SEL topics that you want to continue with. I'll say what's resonating for me is that handy sheet of tools is connected to the control I have over me. And so that was, as Luis Brown was talking, something that he said just kind of made that connection. So if the unknown is what is stressful, then what I can control is going to aid in calming myself down and focusing on the challenge and really attacking a challenge rather than succumbing to the stress. That's my big takeaway from the day. I want you to save the date. 2 weeks from today is our second attempt at this, where we will be drilling down into what does California mean by social and emotional learning, like definitionally and framework wise, where are we working from, and adding some tools to the California way is the topic on June 2nd. So we'll see you here 2 weeks, same time. We'll consider opening up that chat and thinking about the chat rooms. I think that was an awesome feature. So feedback form is coming along with a link to that one pager in English and in Spanish. And if we can get our hands on the slides, we'll send those as well. So we'll just make sure that we have a version that Dr. Woodruff is okay with. We are winding down our training season unless we're working with you all in other capacities. So we appreciate you. We are here for you. Whether it's student well-being, curriculum and instruction, SELPA, you know us, you know our emails, or can get in touch with us. So let us know if you have any needs. But as school winds down, know that our heart and our minds are with you and your students and your kids. We wish you a restful summer as you think about how you're going to be in control as we move forward. So we're going to hang out for a second with Dr. Woodruff. If you have any questions, you can ask them. But other than that, we'll say goodbye for the afternoon and hopefully see you back here in 2 weeks.